Crystal, BCM, Bangkok, Montreal, 13,000 kilometers, 12 time zones. This is a long-distance relationship. This isn't just any long-distance relationship either. This is the very first time that you have gone into a licensing agreement. This means that your reputation is on the line. This means that you have plenty of opportunity, and if successful, then you can fully go into the Thailand market. You can penetrate other markets. You have plenty of opportunity in this industry. So today we are TBC Consulting, and these are my colleagues, and Ian, Alex, and myself, Lani, and we'll be going over exactly how to implement a strategy for the success of Crystal and a relationship with BCM.
Thank you, Lani. So today what we're about to do is we'll go through an analysis of the situation with BCM, and we'll go through our recommendation and how to implement it. So to begin, let's look at the numbers, the financials. So this contract right here was designed to generate 25% of the profits for your company. It's a huge contract, but in reality, because of cost overruns, lost productive hours, this contract is on pace to lose $850,000 yearly. I'll let that sink in for a moment. This single contract, because of the cost overruns, is going to single-handedly wipe out the entire profits of your company. Why is that? There are many reasons which we'll go into in a moment, but what we're here today to do is to take you through how to eliminate those cost overruns, increase the productive hours, and take you from losing huge amounts of money this year to actually gaining money next year and continue that success on into the future. So we've outlined some of the main issues today. Most of them deal with the production itself and the process and how those processes are going wrong, the problems with the HR and the personnel at these factories, and finally, some of the uncontrollable factors that simply weren't accounted for in this contract. And those are the issues that are really affecting this bottom line. Lani will take you over the specifics of these issues.
So first off, let's look at the inefficient manufacturing. Right now, it's a licensing agreement with BCM. That means your manufacturing is in Thailand and Bangkok right now. But that doesn't mean that you have full control of how the operations are going there. You don't know exactly what they're doing. If the specifications are up to par, you send your people over there, you've noticed that there isn't things that aren't up to par and the specializations aren't there. So first off, looking at 2 to 3% of the grind is put in there. The waste rates are incredibly high. It's almost 18% in BCM, while in Montreal, your waste rates are only 5%. As well, looking at the manufacturing processes, there's a lot of waste going into it. There's a lot of things that are uncontrollable. A lot of sheets that are 20% thicker than they should be. So all these defects and inefficiency will ultimately affect the bottom line of Crystal. And of course, the issues with the BCM personnel. This is something that you can help to control. First off, looking at the training, 3 weeks that you have sent your employees over there to train them. Is that enough time? Is 3 weeks enough for a completely different Thailand, the culture and everything, for them to understand how the processes work? Looking at employees, there's high turnover over there. There's almost 40% turnover, while the industry average is only 20%. What does this mean for the company? That you have to continually train your employees, that you have to continually put in more money and effort because there is such a high turnover. As well as the management, your shift managers, do they understand the processes? When you went over there, they didn't want to talk about it. They looked down when they asked the question, oh, why are these things not working? Where is this supposed to go? No one can answer you those questions. So you have to ensure that you know exactly where the managers know exactly what is going on at all times. And of course, the need for highly motivated managers. This is very important because they are the ones that oversee the operations over there. Those Thailand managers are the ones that have to understand exactly what is going on in each step of the process. So an inefficient workplace and workforce will lead to decreased productivity for BCM and of course leads to decreased profits for Crystal. And the unaccounted issues, the environmental issues. Issues that weren't in your original contract. Your contract stated things such as if there was a default or if something was wrong in the specifications, then there could be a 20% penalty for Crystal. But what about the cultural issues? Looking at a culture like Canada, it is very masculine. It is very individualistic. What about Thailand? Thailand is very collectivist. They're very family-oriented. The company of Siam is a family business. How do you deal with situations like that? You should go directly to the top managers, the people who have control, who can make the decisions. Looking at the humidity, that was something that wasn't factored in. An 85% humidity that affects your products. This was definitely something that you did not know or foresee at the time of the contract. And the power outages. These can affect up to 1 hour of delay in the production. Who takes charge of that? Who is to blame? What about the loss of revenue during this time? This is something that wasn't accounted for, and that in the future contracts should be renegotiated after 2 years. So these issues that I've gone through, these all affect Crystal and Lisa IAM's long-term relationship. So our plan is for Crystal to establish a long-term relationship in order to establish profitability of the company. This includes implementing higher standards of quality control, as well as ensuring the competency and empowerment of your employees, as well as mitigating any uncontrollable factors in the contract that was not previously established. Melting the hurdles. Now what does this mean? There's several recommendations. First off, we talked about the HR, we talked about the manufacturing processes, and we talked about the environmental uncontrollable issues. So the first one, the main process. Well, we are recommending for Crystal to implement a Six Sigma and total quality control in order to ensure the high quality and standards of the products being produced at BCIM, as well as HR, to send expatriates, send people from Montreal who have the expertise, who know exactly the processes and what goes into each section of the process in order to teach the people and employees, local managers in Thailand so that they can fully understand and be aware. And of course, the environment. This is a draft for a new renewal of the contract. Right now, your contract is a 2-year contract. That means you can't change the contract at the moment. That means whatever's in there, you can't change. You don't want to break the relationship by going in there saying, oh, well, we want to change this and this right now. That's going to hinder the relationship. You want to keep it. So any cost that there could be because of the contract is a sunk cost at the moment. But after 2013, you can change the contract. You can renew it so that it is favorable for you as well to increase revenues. Building that bridge. So as we previously mentioned, there's several issues to consider. But right now, immediately, tomorrow, what are you going to do? Going into BCIM, you know that there are problems, but you're looking at this as a long-term relationship, as a long-term investment, and you have to continually put that in your mind, that any costs that you incur right now, in the future, you'll be gaining a lot more from this relationship. So any of the smaller costs from any employee trainings or from any Six Sigma costs, keep in mind that this is all in the long term. And at the moment, all the things that are happening at the factory in Thailand, if there is something wrong, you can't go up to them and say, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong, you're doing that wrong. That will just offend them. You want to say, we'll go in, we'll fix this and this, and if it's still not up to par, if those discolorations are still there, if there's still signs and problems, then we will incur the 20% costs. Otherwise, Crystal is able to fix this, and there is a solution.
Thank you, Annie. If I were to ask you one question, what is the biggest problem with BCIM at the moment? That's quality. And we're going to focus a lot about quality and about how to improve the quality of the products at the BCIM plant. Why? Because these are the products of Crystal. This is your brand, this is your reputation at stake. Quality is very, very important. I will touch upon the manufacturing processes and exactly how to improve them, how to ensure that quality is up to par. Then I will talk about the human resources issues, and I will talk about the contract. What exactly do we do with the contract when we're going to renew into account for these practices? Looking at this slide, is we want to go towards the Six Sigma manufacturing. What does Six Sigma mean? Six Sigma means 1 defect in a million. Now, 1 defect in a million is a really hard to achieve. However, we want to reduce the 20% current waste and defect rate of 20% to at least 5% that's common at the Montreal plant. This is achievable, and we believe that we can reduce it even further with our implementation plan. What do we need to do to achieve that Six Sigma manufacturing? We need total quality control. How do we do it? First, we need to communicate to the shift supervisor the importance, to the shift supervisor and the technicians, the importance of quality. Yes, it might sound as simple as sit down with the people and talk with them about quality. Explain the importance of quality, how it affects the bottom line of BCIM, how it affects the bottom line of Crystal. Then we'll need to standardize some of the procedures. We can use the checklist, and we can use some of the simple statistical tools to standardize the procedures. And this is really important because we do not want to overcomplicate things. So we need something simple, but something that can work as well. And finally, we need to summarize the data and then continuously make changes accordingly to our findings. First, I would like to talk about the procedures. RIS-IM already has quality control procedures built in their production process. However, they only evaluate the final product, the cup. According to our analysis, mistakes happen all the way throughout the production process. At the not only the production, not only the final shaping, forming stage, but also at the steps beforehand. So we'd like to address that. We would need to take sample. We would need to, first of all, get the quality control procedures and apply them to the extrusion stage and also to the final forming stage. When we do this, the technicians will be evaluating the product as well as the final product, as well as the work in progress, and they will take 20 samples. 20 samples is enough to build a statistical model. For the first month, we will we'll conduct a statistical analysis every week to make sure that the products are up to quality, and we'll use t-test to do that. We believe that statistical procedures is an easy way to improve quality, and since we're going to be implementing these statistical procedures all the way throughout the whole process, we'll know exactly what the mistakes are, so we can trace them back. And the other part of our implementation is checklists. Something as simple as a checklist can make a huge difference. Why is that? Our findings show that currently employees and technicians at RIS-IM do not follow the standard procedures. The procedures, there may be a manual for these employees how to use the equipment, what to do, but they do not necessarily follow them. A checklist, and it's an easy way for each technician to know exactly what to do at exactly the same time. And here are some of the examples of what can be included on the checklist. For example, equipment is turned on time, and equipment should only be turned on once per day and turned off at the very end of the day. Currently, the technicians sometimes run out of resin, which makes them, which stops the production process and has to start again, so it increases the downtime. So another part of the checklist, for example, is to make sure that we have enough resin for the entire day so the production process does not stop. Yes, these are very simple steps, but they're effective. They make sure that the technicians keep in mind what's important. The previous slides addressed the manufacturing, the issue in manufacturing and the total quality control. However, there is another reason for why quality is not up to par, and that's the employees and the technicians. First of all, we need to implement a system of merit-based pay as well as pay per piece. We'd like to combine those two because we not only want the output to increase, we want the quality output to increase. We want to make sure that the employees are accountable for the final product, for the final quality of the product. Because quality is what actually adds to the bottom line, what increases from it. And ensuring that employees paid on the quality output will increase the bottom line both of RIS-IM and of Crystal, and we really care about that. The next issue is the training. How do we provide that training? Lenny already touched on the issue that 3 weeks is not enough for a person to fly from Montreal and to do quick training of Thai people using interpreters and then fly back and then try to sort the remaining issues over the telephone. We believe that there should be a designated person from Canada. It will be an expatriate who will go to Thailand for a couple of months, and then we will choose them based on qualities such as the competency in technical skills as well as the cultural understanding of Thai people. This person will then train the employees and then train the technicians, and he can provide that support that's currently lacking for the plant in RIS-IM. And finally, we would continuously follow up with the expatriate person, the designated person will continuously follow up with the local managers. And one of the cool things that this expatriate can do, knowing the culture, he can also build these relationships with other suppliers in Thailand and Southeast Asia. And finally, the contract. We cannot take into consideration the the factors such as culture in the contract, but one thing that we will be able to do in 1 year and 9 months is to make sure that we charge more per piece. From 12 cents, we will go to 13 cents per piece. Why? And probably Resign will ask us why we want to charge more. Because we want to take that into consideration, that risk of the power outage and the risk of the humidity, the 85% humidity. That's why we're going to charge a slightly higher price per piece. And that's our implementation.
So what does this contract cost? There are a number of costs associated with a new project like this. As for one-time cost, getting that expatriate over there to implement these processes, to get it all started, we see as a one-time cost. Or maybe in a few years down the road, if we need more training, that is something that can be looked at that time. But the continual cost to have that effective training program, to have those systems implemented, we project to be a $120,000 additional cost per year. Is it worth it? Looking at the current and the two slides, the two columns there where there were the initial slides at the beginning, you can see that using the current processes, Siam and Sauder and Crystal are absolutely hemorrhaging money. But even taking into account those new costs, just by simply lowering the number of defaults, you're able to incredibly raise your profit margins. So much so that even next year, even over a quick turnaround, this contract will be profitable. And signing that new contract, having that extra cent per revenue, makes it even more profitable project. Is that as profitable as the initial projected? No, it's not. But this is more in line with the profit margins from the rest of your operations, and it is sustainable in the long term. This is something that you can keep up year after year, and it sets a model for you to do these licensing agreements with other companies so that you can continue to grow your business. And so looking for the timeline of how we move forward with this plan. As I stated, you are hemorrhaging money from this contract right now. You need to move quickly. This isn't something that happens 6 months down the year road, because in 6 months you've lost $400,000. This is something that you move forward quickly. You have to find that expatriate right away. It's Canadian winter time. It shouldn't be hard to find an up-and-coming superstar in your company to want to go to Bangkok for 3 months. It's an exciting job, and you think that they would be thrilled to do that. With the checklist, these are simple solutions. These are things that you can implement quickly. These are processes that you want to establish right away so that moving forward, they're standardized, they're there, and they're establishing with that quality control. And finally, with the contract. Like we said, you're losing money right now. Why re-up a contract where you're losing money? We want you to wait for a year to reevaluate. After the quality control is there, after you see how things are operating in this new environment, then you can take a look at where your situation is at. You can take the recommendations that we give you on that contract and then renegotiate that contract from that year point. You're on. There's still 21 months left in this contract. You have plenty of time to renegotiate it once you have a better understanding of where you're at. And are there any risks and mitigations? Of course, any plan contains risks. Today I'll just touch on one of them here. You have the rest of them there on your slide. But that is the first one, that you continue to have that high turnover. So your company measures its profit in Canadian dollars. It's a great thing, especially when you move to Thailand where the costs of employment are considerably lower. You have a high degree of leverage on offering those employees a higher amount of salary in order to stay on, so that you can keep the good managers and so that you can continue to have that productivity and that efficiency in the long term.
Empowered employees, taking into cultural aspects, and efficient and productive manufacturing. This is what will help Crystal and Visayam to compete against those big four companies, those that have 50% of the market share of a $550 million market. This is what will help Crystal become a leader in this industry and to take a chunk of that market share that is readily available for you. So thank you. So there are recommendations today. We hope that you will take them into account and watch the success of Visayam and Crystal for the future.
For your presentation. on your solutions to this crack. The one question that I had is that the non-controllable factors of the issues that you raised at the beginning didn't really give us much sense on how we resolve those issues with non-controllable factors here in Alberta.
Yeah, so in terms of something like humidity, you can't control the humidity of Thailand. It's going to be humid there. And you can't tell BCIM to go in there and put in all these fans or anything. That's a lot of extra cost, and that's telling them to do something. What you can control is what is in the contract. You can control that more of the revenue, so 12% to 13%, will help factor into those costs, the power outages that will cause a 1 hour delay in the production. So this is helping Crystal and ensuring that Crystal is maximizing profits through this.
Question on quality and Six Sigma. You said that in the non-coaching, 1 in a million defects. Considering that in Montreal was 5% defects, do you feel that there's a cost benefit ratio there where we really really set a higher level of defects?
Of course, and we will never be able to achieve the Six Sigma in its traditional sense. But what the employee should be thinking is aspiring to what that Six Sigma. And we can think about Six Sigma as 1 million of defects per million on top of those 5% that simply cannot do anything about it, because we have to turn on the equipment and a certain amount of material will be wasted, and that's inevitable. But on top of that, we need to make sure there are no defects or as little defects as possible, and that's where the concept of Six Sigma comes in.
I'm just a little bit curious about other alternatives you might look at. Elaborate on what you consider.
Sure. When we analyzed your situation, we're really looking for the long-term success of your company. And so in doing that, the one very obvious alternative is the canceling of the contract that I believe Lenny touched on very briefly. And by canceling that contract, it sends a very bad signal to any other clients of yours or consumers as to, I guess, the long-term prospects of your company if you're not fulfilling your obligations. And as far as other alternatives for our actual action plan, I believe it is very straightforward in that the quality and the employee management is the two main issues that have to be addressed.
Just a really quick question on that one of your solutions was around continual follow-up. Is that letting the regular person on site permanently then, or is it a person coming and
So sending over the expatriate, you want the expatriate to go over to Thailand for a set period to train the local managers, and you want to keep this relationship. You want to continually build on it. So after 3 months, when you can trust all your knowledge over to that local manager, you still want to continue. So you want to go follow up every 6 months, either through continued calls or going over there and visiting. You want to establish this long-term relationship. So they would appreciate going over all the way to go visit and ensuring that everything is up to par.
How does this Figure 6 approach tie into the recommendations that we made around checklists and so on and so forth?
Can I answer the question? Six Sigma is a concept that states that defects should be 1 in a million. In our case, it will be 1 million on top of that inevitable amount of waste that we're going to be producing. And the total quality control is a way to achieve the Six Sigma. Six Sigma is a concept, it's not a way to achieve quality. Total quality control is achieved through standardized procedures and simple steps to ensure that the employees and the technicians can follow the quality and can meet the specified requirements of the product.